This is an update of the Breadfruit project. The Breadfruit project is currently implemented by the National Agriculture Research Institute. In August last year, the project actually started with an inception meeting where we had all our stakeholders come in to learn about the project. So the Breadfruit project, just a recap, is about learning the diversity of the breadfruit that we have in the country, as well as collecting and documenting traditional knowledge about breadfruit in the country. At the same time, when we're in the communities working with the breadfruit people, there's capacity building that's happening in terms of breadfruit propagation, breadfruit food processing, as well as we looking at information sharing about breadfruit within the networks in country and outside. So as part of the activities of learning about diversity, this year for 2025 we've started the activities, especially into the collecting of our breadfruit. So for this year we've planned to do the collecting of breadfruit in our already identified hotspot areas in the southern region. So our plan this year is to go into Milne Bay Province, the Gulf Province, Central Province, and the Western Province, as well as in the Islands region. One province has been chosen, and that's the East New Britain Province. So far we've implemented the collecting mission. We've gone into the Gulf Province and the Central Province to do collecting of breadfruit in the different communities there. In February, the collecting mission started. So we went firstly into Gulf Province, where we went into Sepoe Village. So Sepoe Village was initially identified as a hotspot community for breadfruit in our inception meeting. And also for Central Province, we went into Hisiu Village and the Yule Island Village as well. So as part of the collecting mission, the first thing there are two main activities that we carried out in the collecting mission. In the three sites that we went into, one in Gulf and one in Central Province. The first thing we did when we got into the communities is to learn about the breadfruit story in the community, in the area. So that was through a community baseline survey. So in each community that we went in, we firstly carried out an initial community baseline survey. So in the community baseline survey, we had people come in, and they told us about the breadfruit in the community, in the area that they live in. They identified the different land races that they have in the area, the recipes that they use to cook the breadfruit, the characteristics of the breadfruit, how do they differentiate between the breadfruits that's within that area. Also, we talked about some cultural perspective of the breadfruit. What do they use the breadfruit for in terms of the traditional knowledge that's been passed down also. So some interesting things that we've learned also in the community baseline survey is that for people, especially in the Gulf Province, in Sepoe community, they use breadfruit as a form of landmark in their gardens. Breadfruit is also for food security. Time lo hungry, we eat breadfruit. Time nogat kai breadfruit sanap, nipla kai breadfruit. One of the also other interesting things that we learned about breadfruit in Sepoe community is that when you have a namesake, you plant a breadfruit in the name of your namesake, so that in the future they have a breadfruit tree to go to when they are hungry. So those are some of those interesting traditional knowledge that we learned from the communities that we went into, and that was Sepoe. So in Sepoe community, after the community baseline survey, we actually went into collecting the different land races already identified by the community. So we went into the gardens, into the backyards, into the area that they showed us that had those breadfruit diversity. So in the collection, we looked at collecting branches from those identified land races, the different land races identified. And we also looked at collecting leaf samples, because as part of understanding diversity, the leaf samples will be used to do DNA extraction for the molecular diversity, identifying, characterizing through molecular characterization. So in Sepoe village, we collected about 11 land races in the community, which is very interesting. They also have a unique one that's purple in color that we've collected and we've brought back into the SRC Laloki station to set up in the main gene bank. So that's Sepoe village. In Yule Island and Hisyu village, we had collected 5 accessions in Yule Island village, 5 land races in Yule Island village, and we collected about 8 land races in Hisyu village. In the central province, we found that they only have one name for breadfruit, which is unu. They call it unu in Yule Island and Hisyu. And then they describe it as small round unu, or big round unu, medium size or oval size. In Gulf province, we had different names to the different accessions. They have their own names to the different accessions in the top place to describe the shape and the sizes. So in that in itself is already an indication of diversity in the communities that have breadfruit. So when we went into Sepoe community, they were very happy to have us going to the community to learn about diversity for breadfruit. It was eye-opening for them, the community themselves, in terms of actually learning that they had diversity in the community. They've come to realize that yes, we have this number of breadfruit, and we have to look after diversity. Because as part of the community baseline survey, the people got to understand how important diversity is also, and how to keep and hold the diversity. In one of the exercises that we did, we used the diversity wheel, and we got the community to tell us how many of these trees are there and what is the name of it. How many are not there anymore and what is the name of it. So in that little exercise alone, it actually told us that we have diversity of this land race, and we are losing diversity of this land race. So, and that was something that the villages or the community that participated appreciated in terms of actually learning about diversity. After the collecting missions, we brought back the cuttings, the branch cuttings and the leaf samples that we collected back to Nari. So at the Laloki Southern Regional Station, we have already established a gene bank, National Gene Bank for Breadfruit. So that's where we have now potted the different land races we brought from Sepoe, Hisyu, and Yule Island village. They're now being potted, and when they're ready to go into the gene bank, we will introduce them into the gene bank. The leaf samples we've taken back to our biotech lab And at the biotech lab, we will do DNA extractions of the different leaf samples from the sites. And then it will be stored and then later sent for sequencing to understand the molecular diversity. So from the collection, we have brought back the cuttings and have them potted here in the nursery in Laloki. Once they're ready, they will go into the National Gene Bank. So I have Joag here, who's done all of this, and she can tell us more about what she's done so far.
Thank you, Philma. So I'll just run through what we do in the nursery when we brought the cuttings, the breadfruit cuttings from Central and Gulf Province. When we brought them here, we use fine sand, fine river sand as potting mix. And we use the cuttings, we get the cuttings, we applied rooting hormone. We apply rooting hormone and we pot them. So we use fine sand because it will, the cuttings will put roots quickly. So after that, we bring them to the national collection. So they will be here in the nursery for about 3 to 4 months. When the shoots forms and the roots are already enough for us to transfer, then we'll transfer to the field. So the blue tags are for Gulf Province, the cuttings that we brought from Gulf, and the orange tags are from Central Province, the ones we brought from Yule Island and Isi Village.
So in terms of hotspots area of breadfruit that we identified in the Inception workshop in 2024, we will go into the islands region, and the islands region would be Bougainville, Manus, East New Britain, and Kavieng. Within those provinces, there are hotspots in there that have breadfruit. There are areas there that have a number of breadfruit accessions that we will go into collect. And from that perspective, we will rely on our important stakeholders, the provincial DAL on the ground. They are the ones that know where the hotspot is, and they will let us know and support us when we go into the community to collect. So that's the islands region. And then we also have the Momase region, and that's going to be in Medang and in Morobe. And when we go into those communities, on the ground, our stakeholders will help us to go into the community that we have identified as being hotspot areas of breadfruit accessions, land races, yeah. We brought people together to do the community baseline survey. So in that discussion group, we had our method or way of doing the survey was group discussion, focus group discussion. So we had people go into different groups to tell us their story about the recipes, the characteristics of the breadfruit, the names of the breadfruit, the traditional knowledge about the breadfruit. So it was within that community baseline survey that's when we had the discussion from the village, from the participants. So we've already established a national gene bank for breadfruit initially in 2022 at Nari's Southern Regional Center. So that gene bank now currently has 17 accessions that were already collected in 2022. So what we're collecting now, we will be adding on to the gene bank, the National Gene Bank in Laloki. We will also establish another National Gene Bank for breadfruit in our Caravat station in the Islands Regional Center. So that gene bank in Caravat will look after the collection that we get from the Islands region.